this still connected properly? Hey, it appears to be. There I am. Sweet. I'm going to hit the start recording button. Okay, Dan here, the new DM. That's what I'm going with. We'll see if the name sticks. But I have my mic in this new spot is a little too loud. I've been instructed that one of my characters is being retired. We finished a campaign. DM said, "Hey guys, do you want to keep going with these characters?" Or we finished an arc, and he asked, "Like, do you want to keep going with these characters? Do you want to make new ones? Do you want to make new ones in the same world?" And we asked his preference, and he said, "Let's make new characters in a new world," because that sounded fun to him. And it sounded fun to us too. We were all for it. So I have been planning a new character, and I have been min-maxing the crap out of it in my theory crafting. So I want to talk about that. Yeah. Now, for the sake of my editing, for those who've done videos, they know why I'm doing that. Yeah, so I want to talk about min-maxing. Because like I said, I am going to be doing a lot of that. And I don't think there's anything wrong with it. Min-maxing the crap out of a character, I think, should be perfectly acceptable, unless there is one rule of thumb when it comes to this. You don't want to be the only one doing it, right? If everybody else is like, yeah, guys, we're just playing for fun. I'm building this character solely for RP purposes. I really want to play with X, Y, and Z because this character, like this combination of stats and blah, blah, blah. I know it's not optimal, but it should still be fun for me. If everybody's doing that and then you min-max the crap out of a character and you kind of force your DM to up the CRs to kind of compensate for, that's the only time I think I would ever frown upon somebody min-maxing a bit, as well as I'm going to make this broken build. Sometimes that can be a bit much, where it's like I do one thing, it is off the charts, but everything else, like, not so much, right? But that's all personal preference, right? If you enjoy a, one-hit wonder glass cannon, have fun. It's the name of the game. So yeah, when it comes to min-maxing, what the heck is min-max or power gaming? So if you're new to D&D, right? Now, I know what these things mean. Somebody out there might not. Min-max kind of has technically has three definitions because they also use it apparently in AI/machine learning stuff. I know it to mean two things. I think the proper definition is you want to max your strengths and minimize your weaknesses, right? Now that's how I would phrase it. But yeah, as you can see, min-max, it's not max-min. So they usually phrase it the other way around, which makes sense, right? It's like we're going to try to max out our strengths and have like very few weaknesses if we can. The other way to do it, the other way I know it, is minimize the stuff you already suck at and max the stuff you're good at, or that you find fun, right? That's the key point, right? There's no point in min-maxing a character if you're not going to enjoy doing it. But those are kind of the definitions of them. Now, power gamer or munchkin basically means the same thing, but munchkin is the derogatory term, to my knowledge, for it. And yeah, power gamer is, these days we kind of use it derogatorily. We tend not to, call somebody a power gamer and think that that's like being polite. Like I said, as a DM, from a DM perspective, I have no problem with any of this, right? You want to be good at things. I constantly hear from players who, and I don't want to If one of my players watches this and knows who I'm talking about, sorry. But I've heard from players before of like, oh, I like playing flawed characters, so I don't like to min-max. And I kind of get it, right? You don't want to be perfect. But that's where you maximize for fun, okay? My character is very much not perfect. He's going to have 8 strength. He's going to be, from an RP perspective, a bit of a loser and a bit of a jerk. He's going to be a very flawed character. He has made a bunch of mistakes on the way that have made him very powerful, but also are going to make him a problem, right? You can still have a fun, flawed character and still have that. And if you want to do that, if you're not worried about, I want minimum strengths, minimum weaknesses, you should be min-maxing for fun, right? Now, in that regard, if we're talking about 5e, min-max tips. Let's zoom this in a bit. Hey, there we go. Min-max tips. Okay, so like I said, number 1 is fun. Do not prioritize doing damage or tanking or healing if you're not going to find those things enjoyable. It's fun to theory craft. I've come up with many builds that would be broken. Excuse me. I've played many builds that are kind of broken. And a build that is fun is, for me, min-maxed. I enjoy, okay, how do I make my character the best at what they are trying to do? Now, my new character, that's going to be a little bit different. So stick around if you want to see that. But like I said, prioritize fun above all. That is my number 1 tip. If you find it fun to be the strongest character physically possible, then do it. Like I said, the only time I would ever have a problem with that as a DM is if it kind of screwed up the balance of the party, right? If everybody was building characters that are like really well rounded or have like major flaws and all this, and then you come in and you have like the most optimized blah blah blah. Now, thankfully, in 5th edition, it's not actually all that big of a problem. I can build a character who has 14 or 12 in like every stat, and they can still hold their own in combat if I know what I'm doing as the player. Especially because there's a lot of spells that just happen. Statistically, as long as are putting levels at least competently and picking spells that usually work, right? And I've seen people fall into traps, right? I did a one-shot with somebody who had never played before, and they didn't get any damaging cantrips, but they weren't a melee character. But I didn't see their sheet beforehand, or I would have warned them, like, you're not going to have fun with this. And sure enough, they're like, hey, can I swap some of this stuff out if we play again? Yes, 100%. Okay. But yeah, so like I said, prioritize for fun. There's nothing wrong with min-maxing if you find it fun. But prioritize that above all is my biggest tip. Now, number 2 is know what you want to be good at / know what your class is good at. Building a super strong melee wizard, there's some cool, fun ways to do that. But if you're just doing it for the theory crafting purposes, and you might have actually had more fun just playing an Eldritch Knight, right? That kind of stuff. That's something to keep in mind, right? Now, again, this also comes in with the know what your class is good at when it comes to picking your class. I want to build an amazing tank. I want to min-max so that my tanking ability is the best in the game. Well, then you're going to want to figure out what classes are the best at that. Cool. Now, 3, this one's pretty obvious. Dump a stat and max your main stat, whatever that happens to be, right? If you're a fighter, max out either strength or dex, depending on what kind of fighter you're doing. If you're a caster, get as far on the road to having, at least in 5e, 20, say, charisma, or 20 dexterity, I already said that, 20 wisdom, 20 intelligence, whatever your casting stat is, get it as close to maximum as you can. Cool. Now, when it comes to weaknesses, dumping a stat is great and all, but something we want to try to avoid. Unless you are planning to get a feat, which I'm doing in my build when I get to that later today, avoid odd numbers. So what I mean by this is there is no difference between 14 and 15 when it comes to dexterity, because they all equal a bonus of 2. Why am I saying avoid that though? Because like the exception to this rule is if you have 2 things that are, say, 15s. But when you get your ability score increases and you have 2 points to deal with, you can turn this into a 16, you can turn this into a 17, or you can turn this into a 16 and something else into an odd number. And it just kind of, until you even everything out, the odd numbers they're just unfortunate. Now, that's just from a pure stat point basis. But yeah, that's something to keep in mind is I would, in 5e, I would try to avoid odd numbers unless you know you're getting a feat, because odd numbers without a feat are really hard to ever have numbers, like basically impossible to ever have a number not be odd. Yeah, and that's why I might not actually be getting a feat. I need a C on my character because I do get a +1 from something. I think I kind of have it worked out. We'll see. It's one of those things I really want to max out my good old charisma, but gotta figure out how to do that. Fifth tip, focus. You need to know what you want to do, right? Like I say, know what you're good at, blah, blah, blah. That's all well and good. If you don't know what you're trying to do, you're going to have a really hard time actually figuring out how to stack things in certain ways, what synergizes with what, etc. So if you're doing a, let's go with Paladin, because that's what I've recently played. I focused heavily on damage output with a secondary focus on tanking. He was a frontline guy. He also died, like full on had to get resurrected once because of my recklessness, because I felt invincible and I definitely was not. But my stats and everything I chose really made tanking kind of his expertise. But he was very, very good at damage output. He was the highest damage per round of anybody in the group, almost hands down. But because he was also a good tank, he allowed other people to do other cool things, which also opened the doors for him to do more damage. Yeah. And the reason I say that worked really well in the Paladin was because I got a weapon that added, I believe, but by the end of it, I had an extra 2d6 fire damage on my weapon because I got myself a flame tongue. This was 1d6. I can't remember. But it was extra damage there. I had improved divine smite. I was a vengeance paladin, so I often got advantage. I would then use my Hunter's Mark to add another d6 of damage, and then I would crit hunt, and as soon as I landed a crit, I would spend my highest level spell slot as a smite, and I would do a giant spike of damage. By having all of those things stacked on top of each other as well, I would output a pretty decent amount of damage just every turn, no matter what. This is what I mean by focus. I knew, now I didn't min-max this character very much when I started. I did it as I went. It was my first character. And I realized very quickly, okay, I need to wait for critical hits. I need to make sure my strength is as high as possible so I get my best chance to hit, and then a way to give myself advantage so that I can increase my chance to do a critical hit, right? That kind of stuff. That doesn't require a whole lot of planning ahead. That was just me knowing what I was good at and knowing what my class was good at, but then focusing heavily on that. I wouldn't take very many spells that I would use out of combat. I just never did, because I knew I have very few spell slots. I gotta focus in. But that's what that class is made to do. So, like I said, don't be afraid to min-max and power game a bit. It can get a little bit out of hand. You want to be a little bit careful, because if you go too far down the rabbit hole of a build, the fun can go away. This is the one big thing that I will say to anybody who's like, man, I saw this build. It sounds really cool. It really comes together at level 12. If you're not actually going to be having fun till level 12, you better be playing a campaign that's starting at level 12. Right? It is not a bad idea to think ahead. If you think ahead, you can come up with some really, really cool combos. Like that, one of the popular ones I saw recently, one of my party members tested it out, where you go Abjuration Wizard with a bit of Warlock so that you can just really cool, interesting combinations that, like, if you stack them in the right way, they just do really interesting things. But if you've got a combo that starts at like level 9 or something like that, and your party is starting at level 1 and it's going to suck until then, that's a problem. So think ahead, but don't screw yourself over. Have fun. It is a game. I have done all the caveats and all the ups and downs of this in games like Diablo 2. Diablo 2 used to be the worst for this last one, because you would have to be planning, what do I want at level 80 at level 1? Because it didn't used to have rerolls. You couldn't adjust anything. You couldn't swap anything out. So you had to know at level 1, I'm going to be doing this build when I get to the end game. And sometimes that meant you barely got to spend a single skill point for the first like 8, 9, 10 levels. It sucked. Where now they have a limited amount of rerolls. It lets you swap some things out. Now, the good news is, if you are planning on doing some really wonky builds and min-maxing stuff, Tasha's opened the doors to, you can swap out things a bit easier, right? I want to change this class feature I picked. I want to change out this cantrip. I want to change out this. In some cases, you can even change out your subclass. Be careful, though. They are generally considered optional rules. And me as a DM, if I find out that one of my players, they went with subclass A because it was better for levels 1 through 5, but then at level 6, they're planning on switching to subclass B because they know that that gets to be the most powerful one. I don't know how I'd feel about that, depending on a few things, because it just, that to me takes away from the role-playing aspect, as opposed to now it is just a video game kind of thing. So if you, again, never at the expense of fun, but never feel shame for making some badass character. And yeah, they said be careful. You don't want to fall into too much of a caveat too. If you're like, man, I hate min maxers. I played with a guy who was such a munchkin. It just kind of ruined the game. Blah blah blah. I'm never gonna make a character like that. I'm gonna make these like flawed characters who like the stats are a little wonky. Blah. Thankfully in 5e that can work, but don't feel bad about making a character who is good at hitting stuff, who's good at dodging things, who's good at what they are supposed to do. Awesome. Um, is someone on? Hello. How's it going? Whew. Don't forget to turn that on. Alrighty. Delete, 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 delete. One un. Alright, just did a video on how I feel and or how I approach min-maxing because I quite enjoy it. I'm about to do that with a character. So this quick bit here is actually going to be more about how I go about building a character. Just a few ways that I tend to do it. Now, you don't have to do any of these ways. These are just the ways I do it. So first things first is the character idea. So that either starts with, do you do class first, character first, or role first? Which role? R-O-L-E? Yeah, R-O-L-E. Hey, I'm right. Okay. Which one of these do you do first? Let's clarify this. So, here's what this basically means. The party needs an arcanist of some kind, right? They have a tank, they have a healer, they need is somebody who can throw some other types of spells around. They need somebody who can identify things. They need a tank, right? What role does my character need to fill? Now, if you don't know what the party is yet, this becomes, if you plan this first, what role do I want to fill, and or what role do I find the most fun, right? Do I enjoy being up in combat? Okay, so now I've narrowed myself down to more martial type classes and things like that. Do I prefer to be in the back? Well then, okay, I can choose between like more casters or rangers and things like that. Oh, do I prefer healing? Do I prefer to be more like crowd control and screwing with stuff and like buffing my allies, stuff like that? That's the role aspect. Now, going character first is, that's basically how I built the character I'm about to. Who do I want to play? And then I figure out what class and role that fills, right? My last character I made, I started with class. And then I built the character. But the character before that, I wanted to play somebody, a personality based around Lucifer from, well, the show Lucifer. And then I ended up building a class around that and a role around that, right? It was fun. I enjoyed it. I've, like I said, my last character, though, my most recent one that I've built, and I'm about to build a new one that's going very character first. I start with class, right? I wanted to play a druid, and I read up on Spore Druid, and then I built a character around the idea of that. And it was great. It was really fun. There's no wrong order to think of these in, but that is the first thing you kind of need to start with. Then this turns into, right, like if I pick my class first, that tells me what role I play, and then I can build a character around that. If I make my character first, then I go one of these routes. Okay, what would that character's role be in a party? Would they be a healer? Okay, maybe they would be a cleric or a druid, or like what fits the character I want to play. Those are where I would start. And those are almost always where I start, is I pick one of these three of like, here's what I want to play. And I, as I mentioned in my previous thing, I prioritize fun, and I recommend you do as well. Now, character first can be a bit tricky if you don't know the world. But if you have generally like, oh, I want to be really snarky. Oh, I want to do this. Oh, I want to do that. Okay, so that's the first thing I would do. Now, once you figure out that, we start building our character. So if I'm building a level 1 character, let's assume a level 1. Here's the first question I ask myself. Why do I suck at my class? A level 1 wizard likely hasn't been a wizard for 50 years. Right? Now, it is true going out and adventuring does level you up quicker in most like RPG kind of worlds, but there are plenty of level 20 wizards out there who, you know, loristically don't have a backstory of like, I was an adventurer for, you know, 5 years and beat all of these things, and now I'm a level 20 wizard who is retired in this big tower. It's no. I just figured out how magic works and I got better and better at it, and I just, right? So if you're building a level 1 character, why do you suck at your class? Right? Second question to ask, and again, not necessarily in this order. Why am I my class? So if I'm building a backstory, right, I'd probably end up doing these in the other order, but not always. But for example, I made a paladin. It's like, okay, how did he become a paladin? Why is he a paladin? Oh, because he has to redeem himself for something. He met a paladin who helped, like, he basically, somebody saved his life, and he's like, oh, wow, that's like the most honorable thing I've ever seen. And then I had to ask myself, okay, but why am I a level 1 paladin? Now, I got biased into this a little bit because level 1 paladins suck. All they have is lay on hands, and then they're a worse fighter, right? Like, it's meh. So I came up with a reason why he wasn't a very good paladin yet. That's a good way to go about it. Now, the other things to think in mind, right? Those are past stuff. Figure out your character's goals, right? Now, thankfully, the Player's Handbook, like we're mostly talking 5e here, but Player's Handbook has a lot of good info on bonds, flaws, traits, that kind of stuff that can help you flesh out a character. But one of the big things you want to think of is why am I going adventuring? Why am I not staying like, okay, you're a cleric. Why aren't you at the temple getting better at being a cleric instead of going out and being a cleric out in the regular world? Figure out your goals. If you know why your character is doing what they're doing, it's a lot easier to think about what they are doing. Now, this is not 100% the same thing for everybody, but you want to think of your character's voice. Not, oh, you need a funny voice, but think, did they talk sternly? Are they a very fast talker? Do they ponder a lot, right? That can tell you a lot about how to act, right? I don't do silly voices, generally speaking. I have people who inflect differently. I have people who speak in different registers that I can personally speak. That's kind of about it, right? Some of them go up at the end of sentences. Some of them speak very monotone, and right, that kind of thing. That's what we need. Now, if you can do silly voices and stuff, right? I've got one character who has like a southern accent. Go hard, have fun. I have another character I'm working on a Ukrainian accent based around a friend of mine. Don't tell her that. But yeah, so stuff like that. You don't have to have a silly voice, but your character often should sound a bit different than you. They should inflect a little bit different. They should have just a little bit of kind of their own thing, unless your character is just 100% you. That happens sometimes, right? When it comes to this, when people think of a voice, they often think Critical Role. I don't necessarily recommend that because you're not a voice actor. I mean, maybe you are. And if you are, or if you have aspirations of it, D&D is actually a really good place to work on that. But if you're not aspiring to do that, think more like Dimension 20. They've got a lot of characters in there. Like Brennan has a few accents that he can throw in when he really wants. he's good, and they have actually improved since he's started DMing because he has or DMing on Dimension 20, in my opinion, because he uses them so frequently. But he comes from more of a improvised background as opposed to a voice actor background, which is why Dimension 20 I think is good to see, because there's some players who they're just using their voice, but you can tell that they are their characters. They're not adding, like some of them add an accent from time to time, but for the most part they're just talking like themselves as the character, which works. You don't need a silly voice, but if you can think of how your character would speak and how they would present themselves in that as well, right? Does my character stand up straight? Does my character slouch? You can build a good character based on that. Now, in terms of mechanics, like I said, I generally min-max. So this is the stuff I tend to think about more, because the min-maxing stuff, that comes easy to me. But if I'm building like a character, I'm building a character. I'm trying to put together where they are, who they are. And I find little things like this, like I said, figure out what their goals are, why they became the class they are, right? It's not random that there happen to be a cleric or a paladin or a wizard, why they did it, and why they suck at it if you're level 1. Right? I'm about to build a level 7 character. They don't suck at what they're doing. It's just that simple. Cool. Okay. Alrighty, this is going to be part 1 of me building a bard. I'm playing a new game. DM has said we're making new characters. Well, he didn't dictate that, but he asked us if we wanted to make new characters or if we wanted to keep going with the current ones or blah. And we asked him his preference, and his was, hey, well, I'd like to kind of make a new world. So we were like, okay, well, then we'll make new characters. And I'm going a bard. Now, we are going 7th level, which is great. I've batted around a bunch of ideas. Where I've landed, this is where, if you happen to be one of my fellow players, please stop watching. 4 bard, 3 warlock. Now, that's for a few reasons. When I put this character together, I came up with the character first, and now I'm putting the mechanics together separately. Now, I really want to play a bard, and I want to play it as a very support class. I'm going to be buffing a lot of things, etc. But one of the things I didn't want to do is go all bard. So I started to look into multi-classing, because if we're starting at 7th level, I can bypass some of the choices you have to make early on of like, oh, is this the optimal way to play this level because I want to be good at level 5 instead of like, okay, this class really is going to come together at level 8. Yay. Yeah, no. Now, I would like to go 5th bard. But I have some goals. So I want to be able to do 3 things. One is damage per... I want to be able to do some damage per round. Lots of spells. And my 3rd main goal is being, because of the spells, versatile. Hey! Oh, no, I thought I spelled it right for a second. So these are my goals. So how am I accomplishing this? So if I want to do damage per round, Eldritch Blast. Okay. I looked into Warlock. I've played a Warlock briefly before, though it was Hexblade Warlock, and it was a lot of fun. But what happens to a lot of people who play Warlock is they get stuck in the Okay, it's my turn. I Eldritch Blast because they have very few spells. Eldritch Blast is awesome, but it can, from what I'm told, I've had some friends who played Warlocks, it can get a little boring if like your most optimal decision every turn is to use Eldritch Blast. So having lots of spells and lots of spell slots is going to help with that. So we are going to do 3 in Warlock. Now I could have done 2 with 5 in Bard, because 5 in Bard would have got me 3rd level spells, which is almost worth it because I'm only getting 2 spell slots as a Warlock. However, the Eldritch Blast opening up, I can do damage without using a spell slot, so I can just fling a lot more other spells and not, I have this to fall back on. Going with the 3rd level Warlock, 5e Warlock does 2 things, right? So a lot of people just do a 2-level dip. Nothing wrong with that. Hopefully everybody could see what I was highlighting here. I just realized that I made myself really big today. Oop. 2 levels gets you the invocations, which makes Eldritch Blast worth it. That's kind of it. There's a lot of other ways to get Eldritch Blast. There's a lot of other ways to get Firebolt, or I could go with like Toll the Dead and stuff. Like there's a bunch of ways to get more damage. But a lot of people do 2 levels of Warlock because they get the Eldritch Invocations. Now those are really nice because I can take it's not Empowered Blast, but basically there's a invocation that lets me add my Charisma modifier to Eldritch Blast. So that's sweet. 3rd level does 2 big things. One is the Pact Boon, and the other is the spell slots become 2nd level, and it does total 4 known spells. So I get 1 more spell, cool. It bumps them to 2nd level spell slots, which is actually really handy from a multi-classing perspective because I'm going to have a lot of really useful like 1st level spells that I can bump up, 2nd level spells that I can use here. And the Pact Boon. Now I'm going the classic, doing Fiend. Slash for Pact Boons, Pact of the Tome. I keep typing tomb. So why am I doing that? Now, Fiend is a backstory reason. There are a few others that I considered taking, but they just didn't fit the backstory, right? And that to me is really fun to have the Fiend thing. Interestingly, I won't be using a whole lot of the expanded spell list spells, so this might change. But Pact of the Tome, really important for what I'm doing. 4th level Bard, in terms of lots of spells, has 3 cantrips. Known. Warlock has 2 cantrips, so I'll have total of 5 cantrips from those, right? So 5, and then I get 3 more from Pact of the Tome. I will have, I'm losing, at least for 1 level, I'm losing 2 level 3 spell slots. In exchange, I'm getting 2 level 2 spell slots that replenish on a short rest. I'm okay with this, especially because my level 2 spell slots never increase as a bard. I don't know if that's a universal thing, but that just means I have lots of versatility in terms of I can plow through my level 1 stuff if I don't think I'm going to be taking a short rest very soon, and then do 2 level 2s, and then all of a sudden I've got another 2 level 2s. Like it's going to really help, and I'm taking a few versatile spells there. Again, Eldritch Blast keeps everything in check. Gives me lots of stuff I can do. Now, versatility, like I said, from lots of spells. So I'm going to have 8 cantrips. And I'm also going to be taking the Eldritch Invocation, because I'm taking the one that gives me extra damage on Eldritch Blast. I'm going to have ritual spells. Now, we are starting at level 7. And if I'm getting my ritual spells from Warlock using the Eldritch Invocation, I believe it's Book of Ancient Secrets, something along those lines, it lets me cast ritual spells. Now, my DM has been very gracious and said, yeah, whatever spells, cool, because he looked and saw that I could only get basically level 1 and maybe level 2 ritual spells. We're starting with 650 gold. Which means it's only 50 gold per spell for my ritual spells. And he says I can have as many of them as I want as long as I take it out of my gold pool. So I'm going to have all my known spells. So I'll have 7 known from here. And another 4 known from here. So normally I'd have 10. I'm going to end up with 11. So I am not sacrificing any spells known. I am sacrificing level 3 spell slots for level 2 spell slots. But in exchange, I get 8 cantrips compared to I would normally have 3. So that's cool. And I am doing ritual casting, so I can save a bunch of spell slots throughout the day. And here's the thing. I mean, ritual spells. I can only get level 1 and 2 because I'm only 3 levels in Warlock. I don't plan on adding any. That might change. Who knows? It depends on how enticing things are from my backstory stuff. There's not a lot of great level 2 not a lot of great level 2 ritual spells. So I'll probably take Augury, maybe Gentle Repose. If I do that, that's 100 each, which leaves me with 450, which is 9. Now, I do want to keep some because I do need some stuff for like Find Familiar and stuff. But if I go like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, then I can still have 50 gold left. And that's if I decide to take both. I don't know if I'm planning on doing Augury. I might. I don't even know if I'm planning on doing Gentle Repose. Honestly, it's going to depend on party makeup. If somebody else has that spell, I might not bother. But, yeah. Now, the one thing I have to keep in mind when it comes to adding my spells, because I could just say, oh, I have 7 spell slots, and they can be 1st or 2nd level. But that's not actually the case for Bard. So Bard spells. I can have max 2, 3, 4. A maximum of 2 2nd level spells. The reason being, as you level up, you would get 1st level spells, 1st level spells, second level spells. You can replace one of your known spells with a second level and then add a second level if you want. And then you can replace another one and add another one. So you would start, and you have to always keep that in mind. So I can't just bombard myself with a whole bunch of them and then have like other stuff. Yeah. Now, I also plan on taking Fey Touched. Now, this will give me 1 charisma. Now, this isn't set in stone. This is something I might mess with. But if I do take this, I get Misty Step. I can cast it as a spell, or I can cast it once per day for free. And then I was thinking about taking Bless. Same thing. I can cast it as a level 1 spell, or I can cast it once per day for free. But if I do, it's one or the other. I can't do both. Fey Touch, it's a new-ish thing from Tasha's. I'm a big fan of. So not only will this bring me to my 18 charisma, but yeah. Looking forward to these. So then I get Warlock. So for Warlock, I have 4 spells known. However, I believe only 2 can be level 2. Because, where is it? Here, learning spells. I need to make sure it works this way for Warlock, because it could be spells known. Additionally, when you gain level, you can choose one of the Warlock spells you know and replace it. Yeah. So I have to do a maximum of 2 level 2 spells. So, all right. Spell wish list. So I want to know for sure Hex. That I can get through one of the level 1 spells that I need to know from Warlock. Now I was looking, so 5e Warlock Guide, Warlock Spell List Handbook. Ha ha ha. RPG Bot is pretty good for this kind of stuff. I disagree on a few things, but generally speaking, they are very correct about things. Okay, so I need. So yeah, Hex. If you haven't used Hex before, it's awesome. It especially if you're using Eldritch Blast. I probably won't use it too much. No, Armor of Agathys is really cool. Literally and figuratively. Ha ha ha. But I don't know. Don't know if I want to take that. But at the same time, I don't know what else from this. So let's narrow that down. Okay, spell wish list. So this is going to be Warlock. We're going to do these first because I have more versatility from the Bartle aspect. Now, I'm not going to do Darkness. It's a cool spell, but it will mess with some of my other stuff. Hold Person is sweet, but I think I can get that in my other one. Mind Spike is cool, but now Invisibility. Oop, no, didn't want to include Player's Handbook. Shatter's good. So I can get that as a bard as well. Now, is there any of these that I can't get? I can get suggestion. Spider climb is pretty sweet, but I have a potential way to fly. Because I'm also getting gifted a uncommon magic item. So I've got some treachery equipment. And I can't get any level 3s. Alright, so I need at least one more level 1 that I was planning on getting anyway. So let's do Charm Person. Yeah, so Hex and Charm Person. Now, is there any level 2s that I definitely want from here? Now, I already have Misty Step from something else. I may actually consider Shatter. I didn't think about doing Shatter, but I don't have very many AoE. Yeah, I don't know. Okay, so these are both level 1s, though. Alright, so I can have a max of 2 level 2 spells out of 7. Let's start there. Aid is pretty sweet. Enhance ability. Oh, I forgot that's level 2. Do want invisibility for sure. Don't care as much about see invisible. Aid actually is a big one for 2 reasons. No, I'm 100% getting Aid. So if you're not familiar with the spell Aid, I had it on my Paladin. 8-hour duration, 2 targets, or 3 targets rather. It's a level 2 spell, which means I get it back on or I can use a Warlock spell level and get it back on a short rest. So I could potentially cast it like first thing in the day, and not be too heartbroken about it. So that's, I think, now a necessity. I might end up replacing it later, but I think that's a good place to start. Now, I don't care too much about damaging spells. That's why I'm not 100% sure. I need to see what my other players are doing. Having Shatter could be really nice. And I definitely want invisibility. But I can get invisibility. Well, I'll never want to not have invisibility. So maybe I'll get that on Warlock. So here's why I'm grabbing on Warlock. I don't intend to ever level up on Warlock. So by putting it here, because even when I get greater invisibility way down the road, it's like greater invisibility is cool, but it's a really high level spell slot. I will always have this ready to go, and I'll never want to get rid of it. So that's why I also threw Charm Person in here, because Charm Person, even though it's not necessarily the greatest, I also have a again, I might end up with an item that will make Charm Person very useful. So yeah, that is, I'm gonna put invisibility on the Warlock side. So I've got aid, I've got invisibility. Enhance ability is pretty sweet. I need to actually double check. Enhance ability. Everybody gets to see my horrible spelling. Okay, so it is on ability checks and stuff. Okay, so it is purely ability checks. It's an hour. Third level higher, you can put it on more than one creature. That's kind of cool. Okay, I need to look back to Warlock now. So like I said, I'm probably, if I don't get Misty Step from Fey Touched in the end, it may, then that might be slightly dictated by my racial decision, because I might be going half elf, but I could end up going full elf. I'm still debating. But yeah, I think Misty Step I've got covered. Invisible I've got covered. So probably Spider Climb or Suggestion. Now, can Spider Climb be cast on other people? One willing creature. Touch. We'll put this in the maybe pile here. Oop. Question mark. All right. Bird. So I grabbed aid already. Enhanced ability is tempting. I have invisibility already. Knock is pretty cool. Now I will be able to add more of these down the road if I want. And I'll be able to swap stuff out down the road if I want. So see invisibility is nice. But is that not a ritual? Get rid of that for now. Oh, any new stuff. Don't want those yet. Yeah, silence can be cool. I'm not too worried about it. Though it could be really fun. So that might have to just be for the fun of it. See invisibility. I'm not too worried, especially because I do plan on grabbing Fairy Fire. Have invisibility. We have an amazing. We have a rogue. I'm not as worried about knock. I'd probably have it on a wizard though. I'm just really leaning towards enhanced ability. I think enhanced ability is my best bet for party synergy. Oops, I put aid here. Why did I do that? So aid. Enhanced ability. Okay, now I can get 5 level 1s. Possibly Tasha's. Sleep is... okay. Silvery Barbs has been banned in my game, and I am okay with that. So I'm not worried about that. Heroism, I was reading that this is actually sweet. Except, oh, you know what? If I'm going to be casting aid a lot, I shouldn't worry about heroism. Or no, aid is, it just increases your hit points. It's not temporary hit points. I think that's a good one. Now I know I want healing word. Don't know about cure wounds yet. I need to see what the party makeup is. As I said, Fiery Fire. I'm gonna have detect magic as a ritual. I already have charm person. Now you'll notice I'm paying a lot of attention. Now this is the thing I like about RPG Bot is that they color code things. If you haven't used it before, the kind of orangey color here, that is situational. Red, if you ever see it, they're like, yeah, don't take it. There's better. And then green is good. Blue is like top notch. And they actually have added, I don't know when they added the star system. I'm okay with that too. But yeah, I'm paying mostly attention to the blue, and that's what I like about this site is rather than searching through all of these and reading every description, I can see, okay, command. Okay, I see why they put it out there, and then they kind of sum up why. Now again, have it already. I don't have to care about it. Cure wounds, it's fine, but the action economy is worse, as they mentioned. Now I can also do healing word as a level 2 and get it back on a short rest, so not too bad. So I might get cure wounds. We'll see. If I end up being the de facto healer, cure wounds is coming. So I can get 3 more. Featherfall is probably important. Having it always ready, given that the type of caster I am, I think that actually is very handy. I know somebody's gonna be annoyed that I'm capping some stuff and not others. All right. Okay, so that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. identify. Already have. Now silent image. Tasha's. Maybe that's how I go do it. Is I go. That's not bad actually. Tasha's hideous laughter for. Now, is Tasha's hideous laughter a charm? Is it considered a charm? It is not. But it does knock them prone, which then lets my rogue stab the crap out of them with a whole lot of advantage on it. And hideous laughter actually, I could see that being useful out of combat because it seems less dickish than like a charm or other stuff. Yeah, so almost everything I have here is out or in combat stuff. So we're gonna go with silent image. I might swap it out later, and voila. All right, so those are spells. Now we go cantrips. So under Warlock, Eldritch Blast, 100%. Now, I believe I get 2. All right, so oh, I have this open. Or oh, did I close it because I'm? Yeah, I closed it because I thought I was done with these. Now, what does Warlock get under cantrips that I actually care about? I don't. So Chill Touch is actually sweet. I made a previous character that I opted out of Eldritch Blast and just had Chill Touch because I was mostly doing melee, but Chill Touch having the ability to stop something from regaining hit points on their turn is actually really useful if you're ever fighting something that regenerates or is like keeps healing itself. So that is a maybe. Mage Hand, I definitely want, but I think I can get that from Bard. Minor Illusion, definitely want. So I want, Eldritch Blast, Minor Illusion, Mage Hand. I want Prestidigitation. Sure. All right. Don't know if I want to go Vicious Mockery or not. I don't care about light until I find out party description. Same thing, Dancing Lights. Minor, or no, I already have Minor Illusion on here. Okay, so here's the reason I'm doing this. Is much like with everything else. I'm going to be leveling up in Bard, so I need to pick my 2 cantrips or my second cantrip very carefully from Warlock, because if I pick poorly, then I don't get to swap it out later without like DM permission. Now, Mage Hand is sweet and very useful, but unlike some classes, I don't get an invisible Mage Hand. And I do have Find Familiar. But I do think I want Mage Hand. So I want to figure out my 5 cantrips for non Pact of the Tome. And then when I add Pact of the Tome, those can be from anywhere. So I'm probably going to go a little more wonky. But we shall see. Don't care about Frostbite. Alright, so... Now, how big is Minor Illusion? Must be no larger than a 5-foot cube, which is actually pretty big. Oh, message. That's one I'm missing. I'm like, what am I missing? A big one. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, those are probably where I'm at. I'm okay without Mind Sliver. I know it's really cool. I like it. The D4 penalty is really nice, but yeah. So then I get 3 more. Which is a lot. Now I'm planning on guidance. I mean, cantrips. This is the other thing I like about Wikidot, is it will show me all the cantrips in the game without having to select a class. I know some people really like Thorn Whip. Again, I'm not keen on it, just because if I'm going to be I do like that it moves things around, but I just think I would very seldom jump to it. And I'm thinking more out of combat stuff, because I have Eldritch Blast, and it's just like, why wouldn't I do something else cool? Resistance kind of sucks. Sorry if you like it. Don't care about Primal Savagery. Already have Message. Mending's neat. I have a suspicion that I don't have to worry about it. I think we're having an Artificer, so I can ask what cantrips they are taking once they're at this. So I will consider Mending. I don't care about Friends. Now, Druidcraft is an interesting one. Predicts the weather for the next 24 hours. Instantly makes a flower bloom. Instantly light or snuff out a candle, torch, or small campfire. Because that's actually handy. Because I don't believe I can do that prestidigitation. I think you can do that with Thaumaturgy. Oh, yeah, instant. Okay, yeah, I care a lot less about Druidcraft. I don't really want, like, my character's not going to be summoning flowers for people. Just not really his thing. I do see why people like this, though, because it is basically a Druid's version of it. But I don't have to worry about it. Mold Earth. This was one. Dirt or stone. That's actually a big one. Move around. It's shapes to appear, and then they, yeah, so you can like send a secret message to somebody silently, at least somewhat. Somatic components, but if the dirt or stone you target is on the ground, you can cause it to become difficult terrain. You can have 2 more at a time. You can dismiss such effects on act. Situationally, I think that might be a fun one. Then there was, what was it? It's not control water. There's a water one. I think the water one is actually was pretty sweet. Shape water. Choose an area of water you can see that fits in a 5-foot cube. You manipulate it in one of the following ways. Instantly move or otherwise change the flow of the water as you direct up to 5 feet in direction. Doesn't have enough force to cause damage. That's great. Yes, freeze water. You cast a spell multiple times. You can have no more than 2 of its non-instantaneous effects active at a time. Oh, that is actually important. So you can freeze 5 feet of water, but so you can basically freeze 10 feet. But then once you start doing it again, yeah. I can see some cool uses for this. That is a maybe. Mold earth. Yeah, I've already got all the big ones handled, right? I've got damage. I've got a bunch of stuff to mess with people outside of combat. Guidance outside of combat. Yeah, the only thing is I might sacrifice one of these for potentially another. But I just don't care about any of these other ones. Like I said, Druidcraft is cool, but Prestidigitation covers most of what I would want to do, right? Other than like, oh, I want to check the weather or like summoning flowers, which again, as a druid, I can see that being fun. Chill touch. Yeah, maybe. Thorn Whip is nice for dragging things around on the battlefield, but I'm not using blade the 1,000 cuts or blades or whatever the heck it's called. So yeah, I'm liking what I've kind of got going here. On off. It's probably for something else. Minor Illusion have it. Mind Sliver is another potential other damaging spell. Is this on the Bard list? No. So I could grab Mind Sliver. From either the book or the other stuff. Code Thoughts. I don't know that one. Yeah, I'm gonna have to sleep on this a little bit. But this is a giant head start in a lot of my stuff. Now, you may notice under Warlock spells, I've only got 3 so far. I might be taking might go with Command, because I'm going with the Fiend. I don't know yet. I do not know. But normally I would take that over like Charm Person, although now I have Hideous Laughter for in combat. But again, I might end up with advantage on some charm stuff. I'm going to see, because I'm going to be taking an item. But I think that's it for me for today, because I've got some other stuff to do. I know I've only been live for like an hour, and 20 minutes of that was me having a conversation out of the room. But I just wanted to knock out a few videos, get more used to talking on this mic. So there's that. But yeah, I'll probably be back tomorrow to finish up my actual building of this bard. Spending my gold, getting the back, not backstory, but background and stuff all clicked in. Yeah, I will return at a later date.